Exactly. Just try running on the treadmill without any shoes on and see how you get on with it. But certainly trying to change someone's technique is going to take a long time to do, and they've got to be committed to do it. It's not sort of something, I want you up on your toes now, so yeah, I wouldn't, if they're on the treadmill and they're saying, how's my technique? Well, you can say, well, you do heel strike, so that's one thing that we could look at improving if you wanted to pick up your pace. So certainly, yeah, I mean, it's worth, if you do have clients that are interested in running, you might like to, see if they want to try barefoot running with you outside sometimes. So, yeah. Cool. Okay, so foam rolling and SMR, so myofascial release. Trigger points, knots, are the result of trauma to the tissue. They basically lead to altered strength, coordination, synergist dominance of joint motion. So rather than the primary muscle working the joint motion, you'll find that then the synergist, smaller muscles, will take over because of the dysfunction on the main muscle. Okay. So external pressure stimulates the receptors in these muscle tissues and overrides their protective yet dysfunctional mechanisms. So basically, there's receptors in the muscles, and when they come under increased extreme tension, they trigger this release and they'll relax the muscle, okay? So for instance, if you're, it's basically to protect connective tissue from snapping, like your Achilles tendon, so the muscle tissues will elongate. So this is a way that, but they're stimulated to such a point that they're tight all the time and they need to release. That's why you've got these trigger points. So applying pressure on the trigger points for a period of time can diminish the activity. So you're almost tricking the fibres into thinking that there's a stress on there and they need to relax, whereas they do need to relax because they're knotted up too much. So applying pressure, you can use one of these, or the good old-fashioned foam roller, depending on how sore and tight you are. But that's basically where the theory comes from. So stretching can then follow to increase the muscle extensibility where necessary. So you'd want to try and relax and stretch out these trigger points, ease out these trigger points before then following on with a stretch. It re-establishes efficient coordinated movement patterns, so you're going to be more efficient at moving. And improves connective tissue viscosity, so it's good for warming up the connective tissues, the ligaments and tendons before you were to run, so it's a good thing to do then. Now you want to be looking at slow or sustained pressure, okay? So when I say slow, you're talking about an inch a centimetre, an inch a second, so really quite slow on there, okay? If you go too fast, you actually have the opposite effect, and those Golgi tendon receptors actually tighten up, okay? So a little thing, high pressure, so if you're pressing loads of pressure, you want to go low duration, and low pressure, so if it's quite soft, you're rolling around, you can stay on there for quite a while, okay? Harder SMR implements are required when rolling is less effective, so when you find you've moved on and you don't find this any good anymore, maybe you could get deeper with one of these, or this, or I use an Olympic bar now and roll my calves out on the bar, on the metal bar, and that seems to work well for me. Typical ones for rolling for runners, the IT band, iliotibial band, and TFL down the side. The calves get tight and so do the quads, so they're the four ones that you really need to think about rolling. So any questions with rolling at all? I think we're all quite familiar. Do you use it a lot, Laura? Yeah, good, yes. Excellent. And we get you guys to do it all the time too, so you're quite familiar with that. Cool. Okay, so do you want to see my foam rolling video? It's not that interesting. I'll move on, because you all know how to foam roll. It's just me rolling around. So we're looking at the functional movement screen. So those of you who are members here, we do a functional movement screen when you first start, and then we go back to it a number of times. So just to check on how you're... So it's an observation of movement patterns such as running to highlight a weak link in a kinetic chain. We want to look at the weakest point first, build it up, improve it, and hopefully you'll move more functionally as a whole body. So taking Scott here, for example, this is a biomechanically inefficient run. If we can get it to work. Come on. There we go, good. So, he's kind of demonstrating here that he's not getting full hip extension. When I mean full hip extension, his leg isn't being propulsed back, so you've got a proper, perfect line between the knee, the hip, and the shoulder. He's kind of bent over a bit. Now, this is largely due to weak gluteal muscles. So, you've identified that his weak gluteal muscles are causing him not to have proper hip flexion. And if he could have proper hip extension, he'd be able to improve his gait. He'd be able to run faster. So it's quite important to look at these, and you can then pick up on how you're running. You might think your posture's hunched over, but it's hunched over for a reason. And it's good to find out what that reason is, because you'll be able to run faster. So compensation/substitution occurs for a weakness. And often the synergist muscle will be overused. So, for instance, with Scott and his hip extension, because he's not extending properly, he's using his hamstrings to extend and pull the leg back. Now, the hamstring is only a synergist; it only helps the gluteal muscle or the main glute pull the leg back. Now, if that glute's not working, the synergist will do most of the work, and you'll get a hamstring pull. Similarly, sometimes it can happen in the back, and you'll overarch your back instead, and you start to get lower back pain because you're using your back to extend rather than using gluteal muscle. So, improved movement pattern equals improved performance. So it's always good to look at these bad postural and muscular imbalances you've got. So here at Phoenix Pro Fitness, we do what's called a FMS. It's a 7-point movement pattern screen, and it grades and analyses the movement and the function. So we give you a score out of 3, and we look at the weakest one in the score, from the score, and you work on that one first. So if your squat pattern's particularly bad because your hip flexors aren't firing, then we look at particularly working on those. So you want to find the weakest particular link. If there's several that are bad, you still want to work at the weakest one first and then build up. Okay. So you will then apply corrective exercises to improve that. So here we do a lot of glute activation work. You'll be doing your foam rolling, your stretching, and some strength work for particular muscle groups that we seem to be weak, inefficient, that need improving. A lot of people that sit down all day at desks typically have hunched over shoulders, so need stretching out here, strengthening at the back. Also, the bum's very weak from sitting down, and you get tight, weak hip flexors here at the front. So that's some of the common things. So ultimately, increasing movement efficiency improves performance and reducing the likelihood of injury. So it's very, very good idea to, you guys have it sort of every sort of 6 to, no, it's probably more than that, isn't it? It's about every 3 months I think you'll have one. Once you've done through a cycle of programs, we go back and reassess your kinetic chain assessment, functional movement screen. But certainly, Laura, if you're, if you're interested to have a functional movement screen, we do a 30-day trial here. As a member, you can have a 30-day trial. The trial includes a comprehensive evaluation, including the functional movement screen. We also look at the joint-by-joint approach of the body in the kinetic chain assessment, so look at each joint, seeing how it's working. A lifestyle and dietary analysis. Completely individual progressive program design, 4 personal semi-private training sessions, full use of the facilities, including all access to the classes, £69 a month. So if you fancy doing just for the functional movement screen and the analysis, that's a sort of an hour and a half of information, really well worth an hour and a half of your time to find out what's wrong or what's maybe inefficient with your kinetic functional movement pattern, and make some today. And guys, that is it. So, are there any questions? Silence. All makes perfect sense. Cool. Did you have any stored up from the couple of topics a bit earlier on at all? Everything okay now?
Are you going to put all this down in some notes or something?
What I'll do is actually upload the video onto YouTube, and we'll give you the slide, or I'll put the slides onto our blog, or it'll be online, so it'll all be available for you to churn through and digest, and get back to me if you need any more advice. So cool. So thanks for coming, guys. Hope you've enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I hope you've learned something from it, and maybe try out some barefoot running whilst on caffeine, whilst ingesting 80 grams of carbohydrates per hour with loads of energy gels and fluids on your back and stuff. Oh, just touching on the race nutrition, it's also, probably know this, but it's also quite a good idea just to prepare yourself. So when you come into a race, just make sure you know what they've got at each station. And if it's not your preferred drink, or if it's not your preferred gel, train with what train with what you're going to race with. So either train with what you've got at the race day, or race with what you do at training. So just to bear that in mind. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Do you think? Oh, I'm sure I'm saying this right. What is it? It's another stimulant. Guarana, is it?
That's a caffeine type stimulant, natural caffeine-based stimulant,
Yeah.
isn't it?
There is
I haven't
something-
tried it, to be honest. It's similar, but I think all the guarana supplements, haven't seen any that are pure guarana, so you'd end up having to drink a Red Bull or so, which might not be the best thing.
Well, that product that I take, that Solstice,
Yeah.
it's got like green tea in it and other bits and pieces.
Okay. Yeah, race with it, see how you feel with it. Yeah, I mean, I
I
don't know
have
if it's...
time, but when I take it, I must admit, so
Oh,
it must have something in it.
Yeah.
Like, woo.
Do you take it before training here?
I have done, yeah.
Yeah.
I am a bit buzzy, so yeah, perhaps it does do.
Yeah, I think it does, yeah, probably. Try it, yeah, why not? If it gives you that buzz and you can block out some of the perceived rate of exertion, so you're sort of blocking out some of the effort, then it's all good, yeah, you might push
I'm
yourself
usually
a bit
able to go
harder.
home and then do housework as well, which doesn't happen.
There we go, yeah, excellent. So, yeah,
Husband's
can I
happy.
have some of that? Or don't tell my wife, actually, no.
Yeah, I think
It makes
so.
me do housework, yeah. I do enough of it as it is, actually. Wrap around her little finger, I think. So. Cool, cheers, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh. Go and turn the video off.
Um,
That was all right.